You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where the T20 World Cup continues to deliver twists and turns. The Australians are out, the Afghans are through, England are through, South Africa are through, and India, of course, are through. We'll be talking about the 4 games that led up to the semi-finals. Mostly, they were kind of de facto quarterfinals, and we'll be having a look forward to the 2 semi-finals, which will take place on Thursday if you're based in the UK, or maybe different days if you're not based in the UK. I'm Jack Hope. I am joined by Max Rowe Brown. How are you doing, Max?
Let's steer clear of the time zone chat. We know how well that goes. Yeah, very well. It's been a couple of days of thrilling, like you said, de facto quarterfinal action, and we've got an upset in the semi-final stakes. Would you believe it? Dry your eyes, ICC. That's not what you wanted.
I don't know. I like. No, it probably isn't. You're right. They probably would have preferred Australia through. The rematch would have been on then, wouldn't it? Like the Australia-India final, which I think that would have been the big one. I mean, after India beat Pakistan, I think India or Australia is the moneymaker. So yeah, dry your eyes, ICC. 2 semi-finals will be, Max. England, India, Afghanistan, South Africa. Don't make any predictions, but just to kick the show off, what do you think about those 2 games as a semi-final?
I think there's a real risk of complacency from a few a few teams. Whoever wins South Africa to start with, and whoever wins the India-England semi-final, they're going to be looking at that thinking we're in with a real hot shout of winning the competition. And I just wonder if that might come back to bite them a little. We'll see.
It could do. Max, before we get going with the rest of the action, just a shout out to Manscaped. If you are in need of some male grooming products for your face, for your balls, or you just need some deodorant, I don't know. They sell a whole load of stuff. Maybe you need some new pants, some new boxes.
Pants are good pants.
Yeah. You can head over to manscaped.com, use the code CricketPod for 20% off plus free shipping. If you're lazy, you can just go to the show notes and click the link. But the thing that you need to remember is that if you use the code CricketPod, you will get 20% off plus free shipping. Max, do you want to do Group 1 and I'll do Group 2? What happened in the 2 games in Group 1?
Well, I mean, there was only one real big game to speak of in Group 1, wasn't there?
But, no, that's not true at all. Well, India. Wait, hold on. You're saying that India v Australia wasn't a real big game?
What have we not done? Have we not done Afghanistan, Australia? I'm lost as to where we've got up to, Jack. With this podcast.
Okay, I'll do this time zone thing has been playing havoc in Cricket Podcast Towers. I'll admit that. I'll do summaries of the games. That's fine. Here's what we knew heading into the 51st game of the T20 World Cup. India, highly likely to be through. Australia probably needed to beat India to go through. The outcome of that game would impact whether Afghanistan v Bangladesh was going to be a contest or not going to be a contest. India, they decided to bat, were put into bat. Rohit Sharma, he went nuts. He hit 92 or 41. And that probably, if you're going to just point to one thing in the game and say that made the difference, probably was the thing that made the difference. India managed to rack up 205 for 5. People not named Rohit Sharma or Surya Kumar Yadav, they managed, I think, 83 off 63 balls. It might have been 86 off 63 balls, i.e. not that great. If you were named the other 2, you scored like 120 runs. Like, you went ballistic. And fair play to the pair of them. Australia, they came out, David Warner, in probably, at the half time point, felt like it was probably going to be his last international appearance, and it turned out to be so. He got 6 from 6. Goodbye to David Warner. Travis Head kept the game alive, 76 or 43 for him, but nobody at the other end could really support him. Next best, Glenn Maxwell, 20 of 12. Not really doing enough to keep Australia in business. And actually, at one point, Australia faced definite elimination. I think they needed to get to 176 in their 20 overs to, even make the possibility of Afghanistan losing an option that would take them through. They managed to get to 181, squeaking above that line, but they fell 24 runs short of India's innings, and that left them on a precipice, which led to last night's game, Max. Afghanistan v Bangladesh. Afghanistan through with a win. Bangladesh, I think, could make it through with like a 50 or 60 run swing. So there was something to play for. Afghanistan, they bat first, chose to bat first. And it was pretty tough going. Not an easy surface to bat on. This one in St. Vincent, or at least under lights. I think it was better in the day earlier in the tournament. Gurbaz, again, the guy who gets runs, but slowly. 43 off 55 is what Gurbaz managed. And then Rashid Khan at 19 off 10 at the end of the innings with with runs that would prove to be extremely valuable for the Afghans. In response, Bangladesh did a Bangladesh, I think is the easiest way to say this. I think they had to chase the runs in 12 overs. I'm assuming that's what they were trying to do, but it was kind of hard to tell at certain points in the innings. It wasn't helped by Hassan and Shanto and Shakib. Well, in fact, everyone except Litton Das not getting any runs whatsoever, and not getting any runs quite slowly. Litton Das, he gets 54 off 49, which is an innings that would virtually guarantee that they couldn't get through. All a little bit confused. So basically, at a certain point, Max, it became, can Afghanistan keep Bangladesh below their score to eliminate Australia? Bangladesh were out of this. And even though Bangladesh were playing quite poor cricket, 115 runs isn't very many runs, and they were getting closer and closer to that score. At one point, some rain came down. Afghanistan were ahead on DLS. Jonathan Trott was signalling to everyone, slow the game down, slow the game down. Gulbuddin Naib at slip pulled his hamstring just at that moment, like an unbelievable coincidence. Goes down. They do go off. They come back on, and there's like a DLS recalculation, which means I think that Bangladesh only needed to get to 113 runs. They're creeping closer.
114.
They're creeping closer. 114, whatever. They're 105 for 8. They're probably in the driver's seat here. They're probably going to do it. Naveen has the ball and he's having a great World Cup. He comes in, he gets Taskin, and then DJ Bravo on the side. He gives some instructions on how to get out to number 11. I think the instructions were something like bowl at the stumps, he's shit. The plan was executed to perfection by Naveen. Plum LBW, there's Afghans running all over the place, people in tears. Mahab Nabi has beaten his 46th nation. In fact, he might have been Bangladesh before, but for the narrative purposes of this summary, he's beaten his 46th nation. Themes, Max. Afghanistan secure their place in the semi-finals of the World Cup. It will be their first knockout game at an ICC comp. I think could have been, maybe they did that in 2013 or something like that. But yeah, let's say first ever game. I feel like
final.
I feel like this is more of a vibes moment than get the facts right moment. So hopefully I've managed to get those vibes across. Max, how happy are you for Afghanistan?
I'm delighted for the players of Afghanistan that they've managed to do this. That's as far as I'll go. It's amazing, isn't it? It's a real change in what we're used to in our semi-final lineups. So that's nice. Something different is always good. People don't like change, but cricket needs some of it sometimes. And it's just nice to see a new kid on the block, isn't it? And it's quite fitting that it was Bangladesh that I wouldn't say they put them to the sword, but Bangladesh that they managed to edge past the previous country that you're looking at as the one to come and start messing with the big boys. But no, it's Afghanistan. They've done it. And I mean, it's the main guys again, isn't it? Rashid Khan, 4 for 23, and then those 19 runs at the end are
Gold
like
dust.
the most valuable 19 runs I've seen in quite some time. He hit 3 sixes, which is more than everyone else in the game put together. That's the level we're talking here in terms of how, I guess, the anachronism of that innings against everything else that's happened. No one else has even managed to come close to that kind of hitting, and he just did it in the final over, only facing 10 balls. It was massive. That was a massive moment. Then obviously the rain came down, and it was rain all over the place, and it was nip and tuck, and Bangladesh were pretty much ahead on DLS for the entirety of their innings. I mean, if you looked at this game and took like snapshots at almost any point, you're like, yeah, Bangladesh have won that. Like so many times, apart from maybe when they'd lost 3 wickets in the power play early on, you're looking at it being like, yeah, I mean, they're going to win this, because it's just Afghanistan looked behind at every point, and DLS said so. But I mean, fair play to them for digging deep and doing the business at the end. But I just, yeah, you made a point about Bangladesh. Like, did they try and win it in 12 overs? I think they did, but they're just really bad, so they didn't know how to.
I'm pretty sure that all right. I think there's a story here about a really good bowling performance, and that shouldn't be ignored. I think the spells up top by Naveen and Faruqi to leave Bangladesh 23 for 3. You know, they play a massive role in.
It's not an ideal start when you're trying to chase 115 in 12 overs, is it?
It isn't, but Litton Das was scoring like relatively freely at the other end. He was keeping Bangladesh in the game at this stage. I think after the power play, some spinners come into the attack, and Rashid Khan is one of them. And Rashid Khan, like, he's been out of form for a little while. I mean, he seems to be getting back into form through this tournament. Had quite a bad injury, I think, to his back. He is the spinner that they kind of end up having to take down. And if you look at so Afghanistan, Bangladesh, they're 23 for 3, then they're 48-ish after the power play. So they're actually well in with a chance of getting to the 115. Like, it's not in the bag by any stretch, but they've given themselves a decent chance of actually winning this in enough time to improve their net run rate. And then there's like a whole cluster of wickets when they realise they need 15, 20 and over. So Hridon is out, Mahmudullah is out, Hussain is out, and are they all to Rashid Khan? I think, yes. All 4 of them are to Rashid Khan. And that's the difference. I think had Bangladesh just had to get to 115 runs, they
win that easily. I mean, at one point they needed 3 and over, didn't they?
Yeah. So I do think there's definitely an element of the story within the story here, and the net run rate requirement for Bangladesh, meaning that they're effectively chasing 200, if that makes sense. Or they need a run rate that would get them to 200 on a pitch where that was going to be very difficult. Having said all of that, like the bowling performance from Rashid Khan, I mean, that's vintage Rashid Khan, and the bowling from Naveen up top to get rid of Shanto and Shakib Al Hassan. Shakib, who, he's maybe not the greatest hitter in T20 cricket, but is one of the guys who would have been capable of getting Bangladesh over the line. He gets him out first ball, squares him up, and it's chipped back to him, and it's actually quite a good return catch. And then to seal the deal at the end, like Bangladesh, once they were out the game, they didn't just give up. They actually still played. Like they genuinely were trying to beat back Afghanistan. It wasn't like a total surrender. Still had to take those wickets, and literally the only way to win was to bowl them out. It was a really, really professional bowling performance from Afghanistan. I mean, I think we kind of see the limitations that they have in their batting. Like 115, even if the pitch isn't great, that is, just an absolutely atrocious score in a game that you have to win. Like that's not good.
And
you
even
can't
if it...
hear and be like, oh, Afghanistan, what a breakthrough moment. They're now one of the best 4 teams in the world. That probably isn't true. but the bowling performances that they put in to get them over the line in some of these games, it means that in those one-off matches that we have seen, they absolutely deserve it, and fair play to them.
Yeah, I mean, you can say as well, Bangladesh, if they're chasing 115 and that's all they need to do, they'll win this game fairly comfortably, you would expect. But that wasn't the situation, and that wasn't the situation because of what Afghanistan have managed to do by beating Australia, and because Bangladesh weren't good enough to get close to India. So it's all part of what Afghanistan have put together in this tournament, and they deserve to be in the semi-finals based on the cricket that they've played. They beat Australia. You beat Australia, and I think you deserve to be in a semi-final. So you have to give them immense credit. And I mean, I would also like to give a bit of credit to Bangladesh for actually trying to do it, to get themselves through. Obviously, it sounds like a completely insane thing to say, credit to the team for trying to do the thing that they're supposed to do and qualify the semi-finals. But they did. They probably don't have the firepower to do it, especially against that Afghanistan bowling attack, which is good, genuinely good bowling attack. But they gave it a go, and they were in it. They were in with a shout in the 10th over. Was it 39 or 13? I mean, it's a lot of runs, but it's been done numerous times. So good on them, I suppose, for trying. But them trying looked quite funny, especially against Rashid Khan.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think at the greatest moment in their nation's cricket history, I think it's unfair to diminish Afghanistan. Yeah. But these two teams weren't supposed to get out of this group. They were 4-1 long shots, 5-1 long shots.
Bangladesh weren't even supposed to be in this group.
Well, yeah, we're Afghanistan. I think it was supposed to be New Zealand, wasn't it? So the ICC didn't even plan for these two teams to be there. And then when they did get there, they were quite, long shots to beat Australia and India, and long shots, frankly, to even be in those games. So for Afghanistan to actually pull it off, that is a fantastic cricket story, and we'll get to see them ride or die against South Africa in the next round.
And they served up a spectacle, right? There are so many memorable moments from this game. It's not classic T20 spectacle of 200 chases 200 with a ball to go, but you had a situation at any point where three teams in the group could have qualified. Afghanistan were in it, Bangladesh were in it, Australia were in it, hoping that Bangladesh win, but not enough time. So you've got that from the cricketing aspect, and then you've got all the other stuff.
Well, yeah,
you already mentioned Gilberdine and his hamstring. You had the phantom hamstring.
You had the phantom hamstring. You had, was it Rashid Khan? I think,
Rashid Khan throwing his bat
down the pitch. Yeah. And there was another instance where two Afghan batters were literally racing each other up and down the strip.
Ran three.
They were next to each other. At no point one of them was like, go that way. They were just heading towards the same crease over and over and over again. And at one point, they only ran a single in this. It's actually very hard to describe.
Yeah, I couldn't work out whether it was a single or a dot ball in the end, but it was a single.
Right. It's that game where it's you've got a fox, a hen, and a dog, and you've got to get them across a river. It was a little bit like that. So the non-striker runs to the striker's end. The striker, meanwhile, runs halfway down. And when the striker is the non-striker is halfway down, the striker, he turns around and also runs to the striker's end. Then they're both at the striker's end. Then both batters run back towards the non-striker's end. And then the guy who originally hit the ball, he realizes that if he does that, they're both going to be run out. Then they look at each other and they go, which one of us should go to the non-striker's end? And then the striker realizes, we actually will get a run here if I just jog. So they get a single. And as you say, they probably ran three. It was incredible. I'm really happy for Afghanistan. I know, and this will be covered elsewhere, I think, by other people who have made this point. I know there are some problems with the whole domestic situation and the lack of a women's team, and people have made the fair point that the Afghan men pulling off victories like this and creating moments like this does throw into stark relief the fact that this could never happen for a team of Afghan women, and you should consider that. But taking this moment in isolation, it is fantastic for this group of players, and it's one of the greatest stories in cricket history, I think, the rise of this team.
Yeah.
Right,
absolutely.
Max, Should we take a break and then we'll come back? We'll briefly talk about Australia and India, and then we'll get on to what happened in Group 2.
Sounds good.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. Well, there was another game that we've kind of done this in the wrong order, but the Afghanistan game ultimately is the important one. Australia, they took on India, and if Australia had won, I think, they were going to be in very good shape to get through. Max, Australia didn't win. Why didn't they win?
Rohit Sharma. That's why they didn't win. He was brilliant. He scored 92 or 41. And as you said in your summary, that was just better than everyone else, apart from Suryakumar Yadav, who was good for his brief stay at the crease as well. But I mean, that is, I mean, you talked about how valuable the 19 runs from Rashid Khan were. Those 92 runs from Rohit Sharma were just a class above. And it was a case where he took the game away from Australia by about the 10th over. And you could see with the way that India slowed down towards the end of their innings how difficult it was going to be for Australia to chase. Because when it comes to chasing a score like 200 or so, obviously a big start is important, but you've got to be able to keep that momentum up for quite a long time, especially in those middle overs. And when you look at the bowling that India have got, and you've got Kuldeep and you've got someone like Jasprit Bumrah, you know that that's going to be tough. So you got to get ahead. And they did have a head, and he did well, but it wasn't quite enough because there was just too far to go. And that is all because of Rohit Sharma and what he did early on. And it allowed India to be able to slow down a little bit when they lost wickets and still put on a really imposing score. And it was, basically in stark contrast to what we'd seen from India's openers at the start of the tournament. I mean, Kohli didn't have a good day, but it's all coming together for India, really, isn't it? And the one thing that we thought maybe they're not got quite in their locker of explosiveness and getting a fast start, they did, and they did it against an Australia side with a very good bowling lineup. And well, I suppose they've also got Marcus Stoinis, but it was.
They do have Marcus Stoinis.
It was really impressive from India, and yeah, it was a valiant effort, I think, from Australia and Travis Head in particular. They were in with a good shout while Glenn Maxwell was in, but as soon as he was gone, it all got a bit too far away from them, and they did well to even get to 180 in the end.
Yeah, I think they did. Like they could easily have been eliminated in this game because of their net run rate situation. So, yeah, like, not obviously not well done Australia, well done India, but it could have been even worse for the Australians. I quite liked. Yeah, I think my problem with this India team going into the tournament was that I wasn't sure they'd be able to take loads of wickets, and I think this match proves that they, in theory, do have that in their locker. And I think this is probably the first real test of that hypothesis we've seen. I know, obviously, they played Pakistan in the first round, but like anyone who could bowl 60 miles an hour was going to take wickets on that New York pitch. So I think any wickets taken in New York, they count about a third of a normal wicket. This was a game that they to beat this Australia team, you have to get Travis Head and you have to get Maxwell out and you have to get Tim David out. Like, you probably have to get Mitchell Marsh out as well. Like, they're not players who are going to get 80 so slowly that they could play the in quotes match losing innings. Like, this is a team you have to take wickets against. And Arshdeep, who I'd be particularly critical of in terms of like asking whether they're actually India quality. He's the guy who picks up two of them, and I think he's having a really, really excellent tournament. And I think Kuldeep Yadav coming into the side gives them the thing that I'd be worried that they'd be missing in this kind of match if they were still sticking with Akshar Patel, Hardik, Jadeja, and then like an over or two of Siraj. in the middle overs. I think we saw, like, Hardick has had a good tournament with the ball, and we've given him a lot of praise. I think we saw the big limitations
on a better pitch against a better team.
Yeah. It was a flat pitch, and he was trying cutters, and basically they were 120 kilometre an hour nude nuts, as Australians would say. Like, they were nothing balls, and Travis Head was treating them like they were nothing balls. They were throwdowns, and Jadeja's over was pretty diabolical as well, to be honest. But Kuldeep, because he was able to actually get the ball to grip and use a couple of good variations as well. It was a really, really good ball that he got Maxwell with, I thought. It was a bit of a weird wicket. It was a T20 wicket. The batter's halfway down, trying to hit it to the moon, and it's hit the bottom of middle stump.
Just held it back a bit, didn't he?
He held it back a bit. Like, in a test match, that would never be out. That would be an awful ball. But in T20 cricket, it's actually a really good delivery. And I thought you saw the skill of him, Kuldeep, in this game, writ large. And I think that's why they deserve to go through.
I also think
of those players.
Yeah, the decision to pick Akshar, I think, has been massive. I'm surprised that they've gone with Jadeja and Akshar and Kuldeep in a game like this. But more generally, they've done it a bit, haven't they? And Akshar's come in and been like a really good foil for Kuldeep, because he's just bowled in a way that's made it impossible to score boundaries. Like, the way he was bowling against Australia was just bowling like sort of wide darts. And it was like, well, you can't hit this for 6, and we've got a bunch of people on the ring, so take a 1. And then it gets to the point where, like, well, now we need to score runs against Kuldeep, and that's the kind of thing that creates that T20 wicket, like you say, with Glenn Maxwell wandering down and having a swish and getting bowled. And the two of them, it just seems to be a really good partnership in that middle overs that makes it so hard to play against when you've got a score on the board of 200 and runs need to be got. The two of them work nicely. You've got the man creating the pressure and the man who's there to reap the rewards. So I like the way they're set up on the bowling side with this lineup. I think we'll get to the England game in a bit, but it's probably something that will work quite nicely in Guyana as well. And they're looking like a good unit. So fair play. India have got they've done something slightly different with their selection. It's worked, and it's sort of well thought out.
Yeah, we'll get to the semi-finals in a bit and our thoughts on them. Let's quickly go through what happened in the other group, though, Max. England played the USA on Sunday afternoon and did what they needed to do. I don't think we need to spend too long on that game.
Chris Jordan took a hat-trick.
He took a hat-trick and 4 wickets in 5 balls.
Yep.
That's the highlight from that game. And then Butler hit 5 sixes in 5 balls, which was pretty incredible. And that was kind of the difference. Maybe we'll talk about that in a second. But that meant that West Indies v South Africa, that was literally a knockout game. Whoever won that was going to go through to the next round. West Indies batted first. They got 135 for 8. It wasn't enough. There was a moment near the end of the innings. Andre Russell was on 15 off 9, and they tried to pinch a single to get him back on strike. I think there were, I want to say, about 15 balls left in the. I can actually just look this up. I don't have to guess. There were 17 balls left in the innings at this point, and you wonder if Andre Russell had found a way to face 10 of them, whether it would be West Indies going through. As it is, it's a great run out from Anrik Nortje. That caps West Indies' score pretty significantly. And although they do bowl well, this is an example. We were talking about that Bangladesh-Afghanistan match from earlier. South Africa just knew they had to get the runs. Like they did. There was no pressure in terms of how long they needed to get them. And 135 and DLS adjusted down to 124 of 17 just isn't that many runs when you've got quite a lot of wickets. The kind of maybe an unexpected hero in Marco Jansen hitting the first ball of the last over, I think, for 6. But although they tried their best to bring the choke word into play, I thought South Africa mainly had that in the bag. Do you want to say anything about these two teams?
I think it's a shame that they're I mean, not as an Englishman, it's not a shame that they're both not in the semi-final, but I think it's a shame for the tournament that they're both not in the semi-final. I think South Africa have brought some grit that we're not used to seeing from them, and they're undefeated, and they've done it in close games, but they've got over the line in every single one. They've had contributions from up and down the order and all their bowlers, and on the West Indies side, I just think the tournament would be better if the home side were in the semi-finals. Basically, it would be more enjoyable. The atmosphere would be raucous and all the rest of it. And they played quite well as well. I think they're obviously not quite at the level of some of the other sides, but they've certainly put in a good shift and had a good go at it. So it is a shame, but yeah, one of them had to lose out, and I think South Africa, obviously with the way that the fact that they're undefeated, were richly deserving of going through to the semi-finals, and they'll be looking at a matchup against Afghanistan now, licking their lips and dreaming of what might be, which is exactly the kind of thing that could make them lose to Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah, that could definitely happen. I think for West Indies, it probably turns out there may be one batter light for this tournament. Puran being out for 1 of 3 balls is
he's been good.
That's a massive swing towards South Africa. So if you want to look for moments in the game, that's awful for West Indies. Roston Chase is 52 off 42. Obviously, it does help West Indies get to a good score, but it's also not really any kind of a winning innings. It's one of those innings that just kind of helps you lose slower. And that's what I mean by a batsman light. If they had somebody of, even David Miller's quality, for example, or Tristan Stubbs' quality in that position there, maybe that's a 65. That's the kind of innings that a player like that is capable of playing of. This is probably the best possible outcome for Roston Chase. And that's not West Indies, you have to pick from the talent available, don't you? I think Shimron Hetmeyer wasn't selected, so arguably
there is someone available somewhere.
I think what I'm saying, I'm not really knocking Roston Chase for playing actually quite a good innings relative to his ability, but if you're asking why didn't West Indies manage to win this comp or get into the semi-finals, I think you'd probably point at the batting. And if you ask why did South Africa, Stubbs, Klaasen and Miller, although it's not necessarily been the IPL versions of those guys, they have all played absolutely colossal knocks at various points in this tournament. They're all really, really good players. Arguably, there's your 4, 5, and 6 for your players of the tournament. In those 3 players, maybe not Stubbs so much, although his innings here was good. But Klaasen and Miller have been excellent, and then de Kock is better really than anything West Indies can offer at the top of the order. So. Yeah, kind of probably a bit of a tale of the 2 batting sides if you look at the tournament from a bigger picture there. Looking forward to seeing South Africa in the next round. Max, we're going to take a really quick break and then we will discuss the semi-finals.
Okay.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. There was actually one thing I wanted to say about the England game, Max, which we didn't discuss. I don't think we need to discuss in loads of detail. We saw what USA. I think this is where you see the big difference between the major nations and the smaller nations. USA started the tournament pretty well, and it was kind of clear that at least Pakistan had no idea what they were dealing with. They didn't know what the opposition players were good at. They didn't know what they were bad at. They didn't know which weaknesses to target and which strengths to kind of avoid. I think you sort of saw in this USA game against England a team that actually had done some preparation and were able to exploit those things. And there were 2 really obvious examples. One, England bowling 8 overs of leg spin to a USA team that really didn't know what to do with that. Adil Rashid clearly a cut above. He takes 13
Yes.
for 2 or 2 for
And
13.
it was another classic sign as well of an Adil Rashid or other, elite leg spinner googly against an associate side,
Yes.
and seeing them not know what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but Livingston as well, he bowled pretty well, and they didn't, they scored a run of ball off him, but they never looked very convincing. A few of them were through the slips. And then against the bowling of the USA, I think it's probably fair to say Netravolkar has been the standout USA bowler.
For sure.
Joss Butler was treating him like a pie chucker, and he wasn't treating him like a pie chucker because he is a pie chucker. What Netravolkar is good at is like sort of two things. One, he's very accurate. Like he can hit a length and a good line over and over again. And then he has another, like, naturally, I think he's bringing the ball in, but he's good at disguising the ball that goes across and away towards the slips. And that's how he got, was it Rohit and Kohli out? And that's how he did wickets against Pakistan. Like that is clearly a skill that, matches up very well against elite level players. That might even be an elite level skill. But he doesn't really have anything else in the locker. He doesn't have a short ball. He doesn't have a Yorker. So what Joss Butler did was just take 2 steps down the pitch and smash him for 6. And there wasn't anything he could do. Like there was no change that he could make that could stop Butler. And if that were even someone like Arshdeep Singh, who probably not an elite level bowler, but a good bowler, Arshdeep could bowl a bouncer. Like you can't just walk down the pitch and smash Arshdeep Singh back over his head for 6 after 6 after 6. And that's, I guess one of those examples where you see the difference. And obviously later on when Harmeet Singh was absolutely eaten alive by Butler, that's kind of another example. There was nothing that he could do in that scenario that would stop Joss Butler hitting the ball for 6. He didn't have a delivery in his armory that could stop him. And Joss Butler knew that. He'd seen what he was going to do and destroyed him. So a couple of examples there. Max, semi-finals coming up. We've got 2. One of them is South Africa v Afghanistan. That's the first one. It's 1:30 in the morning. It's Thursday morning. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think obviously the best chance Afghanistan have got is a low-scoring game because it's their batting isn't that good, but if Gurbaz and Zadran can knuckle down and score put an okay score on the board, then they've got a good enough bowling attack to defend it with on a pitch that offers them a bit of assistance. I have to say, just who had at the semi-final stage of the top 3 bowlers and top 3 batters in terms of runs and wickets in the tournament, 4 Afghans in there. That's that's taken me by surprise. But yeah, I think the golf. I mean, you say the golfing class between Afghanistan and Australia was big, but we spoke a little bit about the fact that Stark didn't play and whether Australia took things a bit lightly. I don't think South Africa will fall into that trap, but they have weapons, Afghanistan, to cause South Africa problems with the spin in the middle overs and the opening bowlers. But I feel like it's gonna be a South Africa win. Just the quality of the bowling, I think, will get the early wickets that they need to basically hobble Afghanistan's batting effort, and that will probably be the difference. It was again like Gurbaz against Bangladesh. It wasn't a long innings, but it was. Well, it wasn't a quick innings, but it was a long one, and he put runs on the board, and eventually it was enough. And I think if South Africa can nick him out, whether it's Janssen with a bit of swing or Norkir with just raw pace, or Rabad, there's so much class in that South Africa bowling attack. I think it may just be a little too much. So I'm going to plump South Africa, but I don't know. I'm not as far as 60-40 on it. I reckon there's
I'm way more than that.
Oh yeah,
I'm like 80-20.
Really? No,
Yeah.
I'm not going past 60-40. I feel like there's still something in it.
Okay, well, there's 20% in 20. Here's my thesis. I understand that Afghanistan have played good cricket. I understand that they have beaten New Zealand and Australia. The thing that I also understand is that if you look at these two teams side by side, they're
One's a lot
pretty
better.
similar. They're pretty similar in the bowling department. Now, I know everyone's like, oh, Afghanistan's bowling, blah, 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 blah. South Africa's bowling.
Yeah.
You can say a lot of the same things about. There's some really, really, really high quality operators in this. Maybe there's no Rashid Khan. Maybe you say that and you say that's what gives Afghanistan the slight edge there. But it isn't like, it's not like Maharaj or Shamsi are just like blokes from the street that aren't going to be able to do anything. Like there's a few runs difference between 4 overs of Shamsi and 4 overs of Rashid Khan. And that's obviously good for Afghanistan, but it's not like 80 runs. And there might be 80 runs difference between South Africa's batting and Afghanistan. I mean, like 80 runs is a clear exaggeration there, just to make that clear, because I know there's a lot of Afghanistan fanboys out there, and I'm not saying the batting is quite 80 runs worse than South Africa, but it's substantially worse. So if you look at the two bowling lineups side by side, you might say the presence of Rashid Khan and the form of Naveen means that you would expect, all things being equal, that Afghanistan could restrict a team to 8 runs fewer than South Africa. Maybe I'm even being generous there. On the batting side, given equal conditions, I think South Africa would expect to score 40, 50 runs more than Afghanistan. Afghanistan are so dependent on Gurbaz in that facet of the game. And I know he's having a great tournament. And I know that he pulled it out in the last match. And I know he
did also take a knock to the knee and didn't keep wicket.
Got runs. Yeah, well, he's allowed to have a little rest, I say.
Yeah, but that maybe maybe there's something actually hurting.
I'm not underestimating Afghanistan when I say this. I'm saying, like, okay, you've got Gurbaz. Let's say, in the best case scenario, Gurbaz and de Kock net off, and probably any team in the world is going to take de Kock over Gurbaz. But let's just say, for the sake of this argument, that they're a score draw. Every other South African player is a massive boost over their Afghan counterpart with the bat, until arguably you get down to Marco Jansen and Rashid Khan, and then maybe you say I would rather have Rashid Khan there, and then it flips back. So there's maybe one guy in the Afghan lineup who is better with the bat than the guy who will be the replacement on the South African side. So I think you're kind of right. What did you say? A low scoring game. Afghanistan are in this.
Yeah,
I think on like a pitch where 140 is a good score, that's potentially true. Where South Africa really have to force the issue with the bat. I don't see other scenarios where Afghanistan are favourites, and that's why I'm quite firmly South African on the. If I was placing money on this game.
Yep. Fair enough.
Anything else to add?
Well, so it's being played at the Brian Lara Cricket Stadium, isn't it?
Is that in Trinidad?
I believe so.
So I don't. I think
how's that been? How's that been playing?
I think it's okay. I think it's like a decent, one of the better grounds, is my understanding of the Trinidad Stadium. It's fairly new. I think they relayed the square fairly recently. I'm sure I saw an interview with the curator there about how they wanted to make it a little bit quicker, a little bit more bouncy, and a little bit less slow and low. So it is a little. But look, I'm not completely ruling Afghanistan out. 20% chance. It's still 1 in 5. That happens all the time. They were probably less than that against Australia, and they won that game. They were probably similar against New Zealand, and they won that game. Like, the 1 in 5 chances happen all of the time. So, don't give up if you're an Afghanistan fan. Like, it's you've earned the right to be at this stage of the tournament, and now you get to roll the dice a couple of times. Yeah. Like, it can happen. Other semi-final matches in Guyana. We knew India would be there. We didn't know England would be there until about 15 minutes ago. England v India, Guyana. Is this where India can continue their? It's not really full revenge, but mild revenge tour. They've knocked out Australia. They've knocked. Well, they haven't knocked out England. They could knock out England.
Yeah.
Dispose
Well,
of them
they've got a semi-final reversal to overcome,
Yes.
haven't they, from the last T20 World Cup, where England, it was a bit man against boys, wasn't it, with a 10-wicket win. So India will be out for revenge. So yeah, I'd say the revenge tour is continuing, and I think they've got every chance of pulling it off in Guyana with the way it's been playing. It benefits spin. That India spin lineup is, I mean, Adil Rashid. You got so I mean, if you want to like net people off, Adil Rashid against Kuldeep Yadav. Best case scenario for England would probably be that they end up with a kind of equal return, and then India have just got better other options, and I back India, especially with someone like Shivam Dubé who could take down some of the spin as well. Someone like Liam Livingstone up against Shivam Dubé, I could see being a bit of cannon fodder. So you might want to be holding him back there, and then obviously you got the Bumrah factor. Jofra's bowling well though, so England have got something. I mean, they're two quite nicely matched sides, but I think on a wicket like Guyana where it's a bit slower and it grips a bit, I would lean India. It's similar to, well, not similar to South Africa and Afghanistan because there's such a big gulf in the sides, but on a better batting deck, maybe you'd think England have got a shout because it's less about economy and more about wicket taking, and then on a sort of slightly more even where bowling comes into it, I like the India side, and I feel like India have got the edge slightly in this one.
Yeah, I'd probably say that as well. I just had a look at the venue sets for Trinidad, so I couldn't remember that. There actually been there was a low scoring-ish game between New Zealand and West Indies earlier in the comp. 150 plays 135, and then England and West Indies had a low scoring game before that in December last year. And then England had a game where they scored 267.
267. So runs can be scored.
I know, we don't really know, I think is maybe what we're saying there, but it's not going to be probably a really, really favourable pitch for Afghanistan. It'll probably be relatively neutral or potentially favourable South Africa is what I would say. Yeah. Let's go back to this game in Guyana. I think there are a lot of factors that suit India here. I would say this though, I don't think it's like a free pass. Like if I'd say South Africa were an 80% favourite, I'd say India are 60 at a push, maybe 55. Like I think there's lots of scenarios here where India lose. Like it's not a given that they're going to smash around Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid and potentially Livingston. Like they're three guys who take a lot of wickets and can be quite difficult to play against. And England are going to orient themselves towards taking wickets, and I think they will be quite aggressive with the ball. And that could be tricky. I think it'll be interesting as well from an England point of view to see whether Mark Wood comes back into the side. I don't know if he was rested or dropped against the USA. Could have been kind of either. And if he does come into the side, who does he come into the side for? We was talking a little bit about how England's batting depth maybe isn't that great, and Mark Wood coming in for someone like Chris Jordan
makes it
probably
worse.
Probably doesn't help with that scenario. So I'd be interested to see how England line up for that. What would your 11 be, Max?
I'd leave Mark Wood out, and if there is turn, I wonder whether Sam Curran bowling cutters would be quite good on a pitch like Guyana.
Well, this is another factor. And it's a
So
big venue as well. Like we
yeah,
saw Sam Curran bowl very well on exactly this kind of surface quite a lot in our
yeah,
World Cup like a year ago. Like
yeah,
this is the sort of thing that suits him. Probably also suits someone like Hardik Pandya. Probably also suits someone like Jasprit Bumrah. And he certainly you would expect to outperform Curran, but it's not like the margins are small again. The margins are fairly small between the
yeah.
two bowling lists. They're smaller than people think. People are like, "Oh,
Mm.
England can't bowl." It's like England can bowl. Like they maybe can't bowl as well as India or South
Yeah.
Africa or maybe even Afghanistan, but they can bowl. They're not like a complete clown car when it comes to that facet of the game. They will get you out. It's a case of how much damage you can do in between those wickets, I think.
Yeah, and I think just from back to the point, like the England lineup, I just prefer the balance when Reece Topley's in there instead of Mark Wood. I Mark Wood against a team like India, if it's just that he's going to bowl it really quickly, and India's batters aren't going to care that he's bowling really quickly. They're just going to hit the ball, and it's going to go really fast to the boundary. Whereas Reece Topley, he's tall, he's got that. He's got that bounce. He's got the angle across the right-handed openers. I think Reece Topley is, an important option to try and take early wickets. And Jofra Archer is Jofra Archer. So that's where I'd land. But it'll be interesting to see what England do. I can see them going for Mark Wood because they've got a fetish for excessive pace, and they're not going to drop. No, I've got Tom Hartley is the answer.
Maybe Tom Hartley is the answer. I mean, like I wouldn't be absolutely stunned if they threw a huge curveball. I wouldn't be stunned if they threw a huge curveball, England, and dropped Jordan for Tom Hartley and dropped someone else for Will Jacks.
It'd be a real Guardiola move.
It could be. It could work. Like I think it's a really hard game to. So, when you've got a bit of a mismatch like Afghanistan v South Africa, you can literally just point at it and be like, look, Klaassen, look at Klaassen. With this game, the margins are a bit finer. We're talking about things that we don't, that are relatively unclear. Like, we don't know exactly what the pitch will be like. We don't know what who the teams are going to pick. We probably do know that India are playing better cricket. But we probably also know that England's top gear is quite a lot higher than India's top gear, and there are scenarios where that factors in. So I don't know who's gonna win, Max.
Yeah, I'm leaning India because again we'll go back to it. England's sort of right hand heavy top order, and you got two left arm spinners in that India side. You've got Kuldeep, who has got a very good googly as well. And then that kind of thing gets into England's minds, and it makes them do things like bat Moeen Ali at 3 or move Sam Curran up the order, and that messes with the flow of what they're actually trying to do. And that's where I can see England maybe falling over their feet a bit, getting a little bit too into their own heads, and India coming away with it. So I'm going India because that's how the tournament has been designed.
I've said India are going to win the tournament from the prediction show till now, and they haven't lost a game. I think they're probably going to switch it up. I think they're probably going to beat England, but I think there are actually quite a lot of ways that England win this game. No, Phil Salt gets.
And again, it's
Josh Butler
gets
100.
It's like there's so much variance.
Yeah, and I think that's that gets lost a little bit in the analysis of a lot of this stuff. Like, a lot of people will be tempted to go, England lost to Australia, Australia lost to India, therefore India will beat England. And that's, it's complete. There's so much randomness in this. Like there's at this point in time, Max, if we accept that India are probably the best team in the tournament, there is a far greater chance of a team that's not called India winning this tournament than the team called India. Like that's what we're talking about here. Yeah. And England are one of the teams not called India. Like they've got a good chance, probably a 20% chance. South Africa have probably got a 30% chance or something like that. Like it's interesting. Max, we had one super chat from much earlier in the show. Jitter, sorry for taking a while to get to this. Why isn't dropping Kohli a real option? Jaiswal would scare England way more than Siraj for a slumping Jadeja, and then also Siraj for slumping Jadeja. Hardik bowling more than 2 overs is stupid. I read that all wrong, but it's up on the screen for people on YouTube. Should Kohli be dropped?
It's Virat Kohli. You can't drop Virat Kohli. Like, it's the rules.
Jaiswal might.
They don't make a bit. Jaiswal might be a better option. He's a left-hander. It gives you a left-hand, right-hand combination. He's a good player, and Kohli hasn't really fired. But Kohli is Kohli in the IPL had a really good sort of tournament towards sort of the back half when RCB picked up, when he was really going after the paces, and he looked mint. So he's such a quality player. It's hard to drop someone who's that good, especially just to throw Jaiswal in for like the semi-final randomly. That's a tough gig. And then on the Jadeja Siraj point, it's just all about the batting depth. Like you can't do it because there's not enough batting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on that, like, India are just going to have to kind of suffer the hard overs.
That's the problem that we highlighted with the India squad from the start, right? Either they have a slightly longer batting lineup and Hardik has to bowl 4 overs, or they have an extra bowling option, but their batting lineup ends at 7 and it's a bit iffy. Even Shivam Dubé bowled a couple of overs in this tournament.
It's not impossible to see a situation where India bowl 12 overs of spin, like 4 from Kohli, 4 from Jadeja, 4 from Akshar. England do have a lot of right-handers,
doesn't it?
Yeah, and so maybe Hardik literally doesn't bowl at all. 4 of Bumrah, 4 of Arshdeep, and then 12 overs of spin. That is a way that India could go.
Yeah.
Will they? Don't know. I would be surprised to see Hardik bowl 4 overs in Guyana.
10 and 10.
If that's happening, India have lost the game. Like I think that's happening because either somebody important is injured, or one or more of the spinners is being absolutely murdered. And in either of those scenarios, India, you've lost. So probably Hardik bowls 2 overs, maybe even 1 over, and the rest is spin. And then I think on the batting side, like Kohli and Jaiswal are just not important for this India team. And I know that sounds kind of mad. Like Kohli is a good player and Jaiswal's a good player. I think at this point in the tournament, if you're not looking at kind of who the bowlers are and then if you're not looking at who the bowlers are as your primary check on whether a team are good, then you're probably missing what's happening in the game. The most important players for India, I think, in this match are going to be Bumrah and then Kuldeep, and then arguably Arshdeep and Akshar battle it out for 3rd place. And the batting unit, there's 6 decent players in there. You've got to hope that one of them gets a 50, and if that happens, there's a very good chance you win the game. That's how this tournament goes. I can't see why it would be different for this match in Guyana.
Agreed.
Cool. All right, Max, we'll wrap up there. Just a shout out. Oh, we haven't done that. What's our seriously good, serious cricket moment of the week? The day?
Oh, I mean, that's got to be the whole Trot Gulbadine.
Yeah.
Hamstring. I mean, there's no contest, is there? And,
the rain string, as Adam Sample called it.
So good.
And then just serious cricket, seriously bad moment of the round.
Oh,
West Indies going out, I think.
Yeah, West Indies going out. I was going to say Chris Jordan taking a hat trick. That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah. No, that was good. That was a good hat trick.
Yeah.
Look and learn, Pat Cummins. Max, we're done. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We will be back after the semi-finals on Thursday evening. Let's hope that there isn't too much rain and we're not podcasting at 1 a.m. or something like that. We didn't actually even talk about rain. Like, if you want last piece of analysis, it might rain. And if that happens, India go through. But there are 4 hours and 10 minutes of extra time that they can use above and beyond the already extra time allotted to this game. So there's basically a 9-hour window to get 10 overs of cricket in. Maybe
it's a long day to sit in the stands,
depending on what happens. Yeah. So I think there will be a result. If there isn't, India go through, and that's one of the dumb things that happens in cricket sometimes.
Yep.
All right. Bye.